Oh, Alema's here already.
Yes.
Well, you show up early, you get on the show early, Alema Harrington. Look at you.
I'm ready to go. You guys got me all clear?
Well, yes.
Yes, sir.
We do, but I was just about to talk about the fact that I'm perfectly healthy and have no heart issues. And if Lauri Markkanen falls on his back and slams his wrist on the floor one more time, I'm going to develop angina. I'm sure of it. That was one of the worst things I think I've seen. And we're sitting here, I don't know how much you heard, but we're sitting here because people keep asking, well, are we tanking? Who cares? I don't care if they win another game or lose another game. I just love where this team is set up for the next 5 years, Alema.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I think, there's some Jazz fans that are saying, well, we should have been doing this from the beginning. But I can tell you, and anybody, all of us who have played sports in the past, you jump on a team and you're there to win. So you can't come in as a general manager, as a head coach and say, okay, our goal is we're going to lose games. Like it's a horrible and destructive culture to develop. And you don't want to do that. And so they put a team on the floor and the team was competitive. And on the other side of that, not just competitive, but entertaining. And if that's the case, then you're going to run with that, whether it takes you into the play-in, into the playoffs, or whether you end up outside looking in and you get, into the lottery. It doesn't matter. I'm with you 100%. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose games at this point. Go out, compete, have a good time, develop your players. We talk about this when it comes to football. In football, if you make it to a bowl game, that's great. And part of the reason why is because you have opportunities to develop your younger players, because those bowl practices, a good portion of them are just going to be the guys that are not playing in the bowl game, but are going to be playing next year. And if you look at the Jazz roster right now, you're looking at, okay, what does next year look like? And as you said, into the future, it looks very bright. And the development of players like Walker Kessler, or even to see Simone Fontecchio be able to kind of shoot his way into an NBA career, and who knows what that's going to end up looking like. But this has been an important time for him, with Clarkson out, with Sexton out, for him to be able to kind of have an opportunity to do that. Otherwise, he might not. If those guys were playing, then maybe he doesn't get the opportunity. And the same can be said for other players. And I would say, if you look at THT, Taylor Horton Tucker, he probably doesn't play as much point guard, if any, if Sexton is not out, or if we don't trade Mike Conley. So a lot of these decisions, I think, in the end, are the goal is not necessarily to win or lose games. That you want to compete, and Coach Hardy told us that from the very beginning, that this team would be competitive. And then on the other side of that, you want to make sure that you're developing players, giving them opportunities in an NBA situation to continue to develop. And Walker Kessler has just been an absolute joy. Lauri Markkanen as well. I mean, I don't think anybody expected Lauri to play and compete and be the player that he is on the floor for us right now, an all-star and a guy that could very well win, if not finish in the top two, but possibly win most improved player. All of this is gravy for Jazz fans. Jazz Nation, you can look at this season and say, whether we're in the play-in or we're outside looking in, it's been a successful year.
Yep, talking Jazz basketball with Alema Harrington on the Monty Show, presented by our good friends at TryDayTrading.com. Make sure you check out their website. We were talking about it earlier, Alema. I want to make sure we get the plug in early and often. I know that you're a Tri-Day Trading guy. You used to read the great Tri-Day Trading commercials for us here on the Monty Show. Like, why Tri-Day Trading? Why do you align yourself with the guys at Tri-Day Trading?
Well, just like anything else that any of us would get involved with, right? You want to make sure that you're surrounded by good people. And you guys know Ryan Van Dorn and the guys that are there, right? Those are my people. And that's how I got involved, was really the association and the connection and the relationships, because I was doing a radio live broadcast, as you guys are familiar with. If you go on location, we were at Tri-Day Trading. I didn't know much about it aside from hearing, our other anchors talking about their experience with Tri-Day Trading. And I connected with Ryan. I call him RVD. Connected with Ryan, and he gave me a little explanation about what it was. There was no, and this is the beauty of it, there's no hard sales push. They're not going to try to close you, right? They're just going to give you information. And that's what they did for me. They gave me the information and then told me about the things that separate tri-day trading, which is, again, the personalities, right? The relationships that you're going to have. And these are personal relationships because you do get a coach that is going to work with you. And if you're here in the state of Utah, then you can actually do that in person, one-on-one. You can do it virtually, or you can do it, other ways. My coach is Jared. I always shout him out when I'm on promoting what Tri-Day Trading does. But again, it's one of those things where you don't have, they want people that want to do this. So what they're going to do is they're going to give you the information. And if you're down and you want to be a part of that, and it sounds like it's going to work for you, then all you do is you pay $10 for a 30-day trial, and you have full run on all of the resources, right? And so you have an opportunity to try before you really buy, because that $10, by the way, is just going to a charity anyway. That's not going in anybody's pocket. That's going from Tri-Day Trading, and it'll go to a specific charity month to month. That may change, but what they're really trying to do is make sure that you're invested a little bit. That's $10. And now I'm going to try to explore and find out as much as I can. And they will give you all of the resources and everything that you need to find out if it's right for you. In 30 days, I tell people all the time, if you haven't figured out in 30 days whether this thing is for you, then it's probably not. But the key is, right, a 30-day trial is going to give you an opportunity to look at it and say, you know what, I think I can do this. And you can. Like, I look at it from my perspective as a guy that's very busy. We're all very busy, right? But how would you like to be able to, maybe make your car payment or even your mortgage payment, and you don't have to do anything more than get up at 6 or 7 in the morning and trade, or you can do it during the day. I prefer to do it at 7 o'clock in the morning when the Ford exchange, when that's live, because I usually do, I'm going with euros and American dollars, but it's really 1 or 2 hours and you're done. And that could end up being your car payment, your mortgage payment, your vacation fund, your college fund, whatever the case may be. And
the fund to buy that beautiful tie that you're wearing.
That's right. Well, I have a deal with Mr. Mack, as you guys know, so I actually already got that taken care of. But the reality is that you can do this, and people wonder, well, I don't know, I'm not a mathematician. You don't have to be. The beauty of the program is the proprietary software is going to give you all of the indicators, and what you're really learning. The coaching part is learning how to read the indicators and make the trades, but you can really just mirror whatever your coach is doing, or whatever the person from Tri-Day Trading Live is doing. You mirror those trades and you're going to be successful. And that's what they want. They want you to be successful because you're trading, as you know, Monty, you're trading using their money. And in the end, you get to keep up to 80% of what you make, but they want you to be successful because, they have skin in the game too.
Yep. Absolutely. Talking to Alema Harrington. Thanks to our friends at TridayTrading.com. You're an AT&T Sportsnet guy. I watch you on TV all the time. Where are you at on the TV deal? Because I think, one of the things in this part of the world, as you know, you got BYU going to the Big 12. You've got, obviously Utah in the Pac-12. And we have all these interesting situations, Alema. And the thing for me is, I think the Jazz are in this really unique situation. Ryan's come in, he bought the team, and I feel like we've got this beautiful, almost new building. We're getting back to the Delta Center. We've got all this excitement, but it's still hard for people to find the club on the team. So where do you come down on the TV deal?
So, there's only so much I can speak to as far as it's concerned, because they're in the middle of these negotiations of trying to find out where is, this particular franchise going to land. I can tell you this from what I understand and the conversations that I've had, and that is that the deal that we will have coming up in the next year or two and into the future will be the best as far as accessing the Utah Jazz product as we've ever had. Because I understand the frustration. I've got kids in their 20s and 30s, and they're in that streaming world. You guys are doing a fantastic job of being able to look at where the future is and recognize that this streaming component is such a huge part of where our industry is going. And so you have to have that element and that component. And sure, we've had deals where if you're on Fubo, you can stream it and these different things. But people are looking for that streaming option where I know where I can get my Utah Jazz and I just go there and it's taken care of. And those are the things that they're working on. Because what's happened over the course of many years now is that regional sports network, that format or that formula has really ended up being kind of a bust. And you got groups like Bally's that just can't do it anymore. It doesn't make financial sense. The beauty of our franchise, which you've already mentioned, is the fact that Ryan Smith is at the helm here. And this is a guy that is tech savvy. He understands what needs to be done, and in a lot of ways what can be done. And it might be something completely innovative in the end, but you can trust that this franchise, speaking of the Utah Jazz, is going to be on a platform where it's going to be more accessible. And it might be the kind of thing that the Jazz might do something, then everybody else is going to mirror that because they see what Utah is doing, and with Ryan Smith at the helm, what the possibilities are when it comes to a streaming platform. Because there's big franchises that have a lot of money that can afford, whether it's the Lakers, the Knicks, or even the Clippers at this point. But for the Utah Jazz being a mid-sized market, it's going to be a little bit different. But I think that we will compete on that level with anybody else out there. And it might be a league-wide thing, or it might be everybody individually. But I can promise you this, that whatever comes down the pipe from this point on is going to be much more accessible, and it will probably be groundbreaking, and even to a point where, who knows, you might have alternative broadcasts, as you guys know, to be able to have your mainstream and then have something that is also an alternative, whether it's you watch the All-Star game, they got it on TNT, they got it on TBS. You watch, football on a Sunday or a Monday, and you're going to have like the Mannings doing their own part of the broadcast too. So I think that it's wide open, and there's a lot of opportunities that are out there for Jazz fans.
So you're saying, you're promising us there's going to be an Alema cast, is what you're saying.
I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping for that. That would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic. But, two questions I want to ask you real quick. Last one on the Jazz. Talk about Ryan Smith, because he's a guy, I'm a Chicagoan. I grew up in Chicago watching the Bulls. We have struggles with our owner there. Like it's just one of those things where you feel like you're never going to win. LHM was such an important human being, I think, to the state of Utah, beyond basketball and Toyotas and cars. And I think he was just a really integral part of why we all love the Jazz. I look at Ryan Smith, and I feel like there's hope and energy around this team again. What is the vibe like? What is the energy like around the team and around Ryan Smith?
I think I would use that same word that you just used, which is hope. Right. I think the feeling and the energy is this energy of hope for what the future can look like, because you talked about Larry H. Miller, and he was such an amazing person, an amazing owner, because he really cared. Like, he cared about this franchise. Now, Ryan Smith is another guy that has grown up with the Utah Jazz, made his millions/billions, and had opportunities to be a part of another franchise, and decided, along with his wife Ashley, said, you know what, we're going to do this with the Utah Jazz. And thank goodness that the deal was able to work out where they were able to get the franchise, because what we have is an owner that really cares about the Jazz, not just locally, but on a global stage as well. And so you look at the way that he treats this property, speaking of the Jazz, and he treats it like a company that he absolutely cares for, and will live and die and make decisions based on how to make this franchise thrive. So my interactions with him have been amazing, because he's grown up with the franchise, and he's got all of these memories of him as a kid, and now he's an owner, and so he has an opportunity to have his hands on the product. And I spoke with him recently as we did a high school basketball game, and he happened to be in the building for one of the championship games. And we talked about how big basketball is in sports in general. I cover high school football, so that's a big thing to me as well. But high school basketball, we do the championships, and that's, I'm invested in that. And he's invested in that. He's got kids that are coming up that he wants to make sure that this franchise is something that they can be proud of going into the future. So I feel like we're really fortunate/blessed to be able to have an ownership group like the one that we have, including a guy that just got the nod for the Hall of Fame, and Dwayne Wade. But Ryan Smith is a guy that I look at, and I'm like, man, thank goodness this is our guy, because I feel hopeful and confident going into the future and what this franchise is going to look like. And add Danny Ainge to that as well, former BYU guy, and the success he had at Boston, and they're letting him kind of put his own print on what this franchise is going to look like. And I got hope with that too. All of the picks that we have, the salary cap room that's available for the Jazz, and then you look at the roster that's on the floor right now, and you feel hopeful.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the last thing I'll ask you, and I appreciate your time, you've been really generous with us. I want to ask you about BYU, because apparently you know a thing or two about BYU as well, because you played there, I joke. But now you're surrounded by all the BYU guys at the Jazz. But the Big 12, this is a huge moment in time. And I think you look at the climb that it takes to ramp up to play in the Big 12. How does BYU manage those expectations? And really, I guess the direct question is, what are your expectations with BYU going into the Big 12?
I think, one of the things, and this is hard for BYU fans to do, take a look at what the University of Utah has been through as they joined the Pac-12, right? You can look at that and say, okay, if there's going to be a learning curve, and more so in basketball than there is going to be in football, because football's already on a big stage, even as an independent and a deal with ESPN. They've had the exposure, national champion, and you go back to a Heisman Trophy and a Doak Walker Award and Outland Trophy winners. I mean, the history there is strong. So I think that BYU, the biggest, I think, part of what they're going to have to adjust to is what the NIL is. And I know you guys discuss this a lot. You look at the name, image, and likeness contracts that are out there with the SEC and the Big Ten, and everybody else is going to struggle to compete with that. How are you going to figure out how to capitalize on that in this market? And again, you look at a guy, Ryan Smith, who's a big BYU alum, and he supports that team as he does all the teams, but being an alum of BYU, you look at Silicon Slopes and the availability of money for an NIL type of package for a team like BYU, whether it's, football, basketball, or across, across the board in sports. Those things are going to be as important as, I should say those things are going to be important when it comes to recruiting, because kids are going to be more and more looking at what's the NIL package look like.
Yeah.
And understandably, that's what they're going to look at. So I think for BYU, it's going to take some time. I think football is going to have it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard because we're spoiled. BYU fans are absolutely spoiled. When BYU doesn't have a winning season, we think it's the end of the world and time for the second coming. And you just have to be patient and ride that out. There's going to be some bumps in the road, and again, more so with basketball than football. But you're just going to have to be patient with it. And look at what Utah went through, and the benefits that came with it are you're going to get better recruiting in the Big 12. You're going to be able to get more money into your facilities, and so you continue to grow that. But the NIL part of it is a big portion of what recruits are looking for when they're trying to make their decision.
Do you see that Bronny James is worth $7.2 million in NIL, the number one?
Yeah.
And I know he's LeBron's kid, but $7.2 million. What were you making $7.2 million in high school as a senior? Can you imagine that?
I can't even fathom this, whether it's the 7.2. I mean, forget all of that. You got quarterbacks that are making, $1 million plus in NIL deals. You got gymnasts that are in that category and across the board, which I think is fantastic that these kids are making that kind of money. At the same time, man, it's dangerous. And I get concerned about that as well, because that's a lot of money to be thrown at a kid that's 17, 18, 19 years old. I know me, if I was making that kind of money when I was 19, I'd be going crazy. So we gotta figure out ways to help them manage that too.
I agree. Alema Harrington, try daytrading.com. Go get your $30 or your 30-day membership for $10, which is a charity donation. By the way, a tax write-off as well. Alema, great to see you. Appreciate you coming on the show. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. One more time, people remember, trydaytrading.com. $10 gets you that 30-day trial. You'll have access to all of the resources, and you can decide in 30 days. Any of us could decide in 30 days whether that's right for you or not. But it's trydaytrading.com. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
You bet. Alema Harrington right there, and I think he's exactly right when you talk about like a 30-day. If you can't make a decision in 30 days, there's probably you got to work on some stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he's exactly right. I think it's $10 to change the rest of your life, guys. We tell you every day on the show. So good to talk to Alema. And I see Somebody that agrees with me.
Yeah.
I don't care if the Jazz win or lose.
Yeah.
I mean, I care, but I don't. In the grand scheme of things, it's inconsequential, especially when you're getting a guy like Walker playing the way that Walker's
Well,
playing,
I think
man.
they've done so much more winning this year than anyone thought they would do.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like,
Yes.
that's the thing I always come back to. Like, and I don't disagree with you, right? Like, it doesn't matter, like, what they do the rest of the year, really, as far as wins and losses.
Yep.
But I think most of that is attributed to they've just overachieved so much. I mean, again, I feel like I can remember saying on day one of the season, first game day for the Jazz, 2 months from now, when they've won 40 games or 30 games or whatever that number is, if this team is overachieved, you can look back and remember game one of the season and say, man, we're in a really good spot. And we don't even have to talk about the deadline or what Danny's done or anything. You can just know, hey, they're in a great spot. And I think I love hearing Alema talk about that because I just think it's spot on. Like, you couldn't really have asked, in my opinion, you couldn't have asked really for a better season one. I know there are things we're not happy with, the JC situation or any number of things that we've talked about. But
that Jordan Clarkson situation, that's problematic.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Now I sit here thinking about it. I wish I'd asked him about it. But it's really problematic because I feel like left in a lurch is probably a strong way to describe it. I feel like Jordan Clarkson has put the Jazz in a very awkward place with their fan base. Because he is an international celebrity. I mean, for those of you who don't know, we talk about this a lot. We have a ton of listenership and viewership in the Philippines.
For a reason.
Because of Jordan Clarkson. We're the #1 jazz show on YouTube. And we have a ton of viewership in the Philippines because we were talking a lot about Jordan Clarkson.
Facts.
The problem is now, I don't see any way they re-sign him. And again, if you're here, let's talk about it. It is just going to be very interesting to see what happens with Jordan Clarkson because there's going to be a lot of pissed off Jazz fans. I am telling you now that when he leaves, and I think Jordan Clarkson will leave in free agency. That's just my opinion. The Jazz guys and the NBA guys I talk to tend to agree. They both, who don't know each other, they both say the same thing. It makes zero financial sense for the Jazz to give him a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
But somebody out there, I think, is going to give him 4 years, and I think they're going to give him $22 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he gets $80+ million, the Jazz just have no way to do that.
And knowing the NBA, he probably will.
There's no way. Salty Drunk, my Australian brother. Tough night for the OKC last night. You guys flat out dismissed the Jazz were tanking. You guys have backflipped. I don't think they're tanking. I think, and you can call it what you want. That fall that Lauri Markkanen took last week, dude, I don't ever want to see that again this season. Ever, frankly. I mean, I thought he broke his wrist when he was holding it like that. Like that, what is the value of going to the playoffs and getting knocked out in the play-in?
Yeah.
What is the value of that for the Jazz?
I think the value with that for the Jazz is that you do get playoff experience. I do think there is some value in that. As far as this comment's concerned, James, I don't think that we've all of a sudden switched our stance. I've never said, not once this year, do I think the Jazz are tanking. And I've been on the they're not tanking train since day one. And I think, again, the only reason I'm on that train is because I know who's driving the train, dude. It's Danny Ainge. Yeah. Danny Ainge is not a guy who builds his organizations through tanking. And no, we haven't backflipped.
Or through the draft.
And I have to be honest, I think you're just trying to stir the pot here. I know you, right? I think you're trying to stir the pot. I think you would like us to try to sit here and play this little game, and I'm not going to do it. I think that the Jazz are not tanking. I've been on that. And what I mean by, hey, it doesn't matter if they win another game or lose another game this year, is that you've already way overachieved. You've had a hell of a first season. Will Hardy will be lucky not to win Coach of the Year, right? He is right up there with the best of them as far as the year he's had. And that's why I say we shouldn't be worrying about result right now, Ken Williams. We should be worried about, hey, we need to develop some guys. We need to make sure that we finish this season out the right way. Because in the exit interviews after this season, I want Walker Kessler saying, hey, yeah, I came in through the draft. My first 20 games were pretty tough, but then I kind of figured this thing out. Now I'm a rim runner who is blocking 7 shots a game, and everything's awesome. Well, Walker, what are you working on this summer? What do you think? Well, I'm going to get stronger, but I know I need to develop a jumper. Like, those are the conversations that this organization needs to have over the course of the exit interview and the summer process. And all you need to do to get there is just finish the season strong. That's it.
Yeah, and I look at this draft, and for me, where the Jazz are projecting right now, my guy is Jarace Walker from Houston. I mean, 6'8", 220, 19 years old.
Prototypical body.
That's the guy that I'm looking for. This team needs a power forward, and you need him to be your third power forward. Draft him, go sign free agents, do what you got to do. It's just, for me, I don't see a lot of value in playing in the play-in tournament. I just don't. Kurt Meyer says Jazz can stream on YouTube live and free. No, they cannot, actually, because the NBA has a streaming contract, so they cannot do that. Brad Turner says, wait, have the Jazz been upgraded from a small market to a mid-sized market? Well, I think Salt Lake City has exploded population-wise. Mm-hmm. Absolutely exploded. Jeremy Callahan says, honestly, we talk all the time about consternating over Big 12, Pac-12, when the reality is the SEC and the Big 10 are likely to monopolize and ruin everything we know and love. Wow.
Well, thank you for the world-ending
that feels very serious
comment. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Nick Hines says, I think the only reason I'd like them to make the play-in is so that we can have playoff experience for the young guys.
Yeah. That's the only value in my opinion.
Sure.
I like
one game.
Yeah.
Because the play-in is very difficult to win. And I think you're swimming with sharks in that.
Well, and in their situation, it'd be and again, they'd have to win that first game. But if you win that first game, then you've got that second game because they're in the 10 slot, right? So for them, the thing would be like, if they could be, because who would they have right now? If
they're outside, they're in the 12th spot,
right?
2 games behind Oklahoma City and Dallas. How is Dallas out of a playoff spot right now?
It's gnar.
But if you looked at it right now, like if you were in the 10th spot, it's Minnesota and Oklahoma, New Orleans and Los Angeles. Like the 9-10 game is the Lakers and Thunder. The 7-8 game is the Timberwolves and Pelicans.
So you're probably gonna have a tough time running OKC down. They're too good.
And I think you're gonna. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's been out again.
Yeah.
And they're losing games.
But 2 games with what do we have left? What do we have, like 6 games left?
Yeah, but you can't. I don't know. James is probably gonna want to wring my neck over it, but. They're playing Detroit, Indiana, Phoenix, at Golden State, at Utah, Memphis.
Jazz have San Antonio tonight. Yeah. Boston, Brooklyn, Lakers, OKC. So you have a head-to-head left still, which is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Denver, Lakers. So it's no cakewalk for the Jazz either.
Yeah, and if you're going to be without SGA, I just don't know how you fix that. Yeah. Right? He's dealing with an ankle. He's going to be out again tonight, and. Yeah. I don't know. The OKC needs to make the playoffs. They're no longer in a position to be tanking, or to be indifferent, right?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. They're that team right now. That's their next step for sure.
They are, and there's just it's the Jazz are in a very unique place that you hope you are in once every 50 years, where it just doesn't matter. It just does not matter.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy Callahan says, can we move on to Kelly Clarkson? We can. Jack Rumsey, what's up, my guy? Do you want JC back on the team? I personally do not. I think he is a playoff performer. He's a guy that put him on a team that needs a topper for a championship.
Is this the dagger?
He should be a Laker or a Cav right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand why they didn't trade him.
And I think it's important, before we leave the JC thing, I think it's important to say that this is one of the only concerns I have with Ryan. I think, what Alema said about Ryan, what most people have said, like, I think Ryan overall across the board has done a pretty good job.
I think he's done a very good job.
And I think JC is one of the only things that I have some concern about. My concern specifically is that JC is this guy who's been the face of your franchise post Donovan Mitchell, post Rudy Gobert, post that team. JC kind of took over that role, whether it was the jersey rollout, All-Star weekend, whatever. And my problem is that, just like you were saying, $90 million over 3, maybe 4 years is a problem, because I even have an issue with the 4th year on that deal. I wouldn't sign JC to a 4-year deal.
I would not.
3 would be my max, and I'd love to do 2 years with a third as an option for both the club and JC. So for me, I really struggle with 90 over 4. So I'd much more be like 70 over 3. And my thing is, hey, you're going to pay JC $70 million over 3 years. That's a lot of bread on your cap, dude, for a guy who on a championship team is a 6th man. I mean, I want to see my 6th man. In JC, obviously, is a 6th man of the year guy. But even if I don't have a 6th man of the year guy in that slot, I want to see that guy being like 12 to 15 million a year. That's where I want that money to be for a 6th man. Not, what would that be? 25, right? You're playing in that area with 23.5 million a year, right? 70 over 3. So like that's where I say, hey, this to me financially is a big risk. As a dude, JC's fine. Love the guy. I think he's represented the organization well. Couldn't really ask for much better, but it's just time.
Yeah.
And I think those are the decisions that I think define ownership of any sports franchise.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think if you look at the Jazz, and this is why I tell you every day, I don't think they're tanking. I don't buy that.
Yeah.
I think that they need to understand, like, what is Ochai Agbaji's top end? Like Talon Horton-Tucker, you heard Alema Harrington talk about it a minute ago. Who is Talon Horton-Tucker?
Dude.
Because if Colin Sexton's playing right now, THT is not. I think Fontecchio, I think the entire depth on this team, I think you got to figure out who they are right now. Because I don't think you
got
know.
The goods, man.
Yeah, I think so too. He needs to play those pickup games over the summer. Because those guys, you see the big jumps in development when guys go and play those games. And I look at the Suns game the other night, and if this team's tanking, why is Larry Markkinen playing 36 minutes? If this team's tanking, why is Kelly Olynyk playing and scoring 10 points and 7 dimes? Why is he playing if they're tanking, right? Why are you playing, guys like Damian Jones? By the way, where's everybody who's like, oh, we got our center of the future? Where are you now? Right? Like Mr. minus 21 with 3 points and 5 boards, right? Like those are the guys who would be playing 30 or more minutes.
Yeah.
You'd be playing Johnny Juzang 25 minutes a night.
Yeah.
They're playing their vets. And the hard part is, it's guys like it's the Doak crowd. Everybody's like, oh, Doak, he sucks.
I'm a man.
He didn't play a single minute against Phoenix.
Yeah.
If they were tanking, they'd be playing Doak. They're not tanking. They're trying to figure out who they are and who they have. That's how
Yeah.
But like I look at the Knicks. I think the Knicks, when we talk general NBA and who's doing what and how they're going, I look at the New York Knicks and I ask myself, how good is this team? Because you're a guy who wants to slander the Knicks on a nightly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And lately they've earned it. Now, some of that is that Jalen Brunson just isn't playing a lot of basketball right now.
Yep.
But that team's has lost 6 of 10.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to wonder, and I understand they're 10 over.
Yeah.
But is it just burnout now? Because I feel like the Knicks, they're ready for the playoffs to start right now. Like you can see Julius Randle is on an edge. I would not want to run into them in the playoffs.
Yeah, here's my thing. If you look at the standings, one of my only complaints about the Knicks has been that I think Julius Randle emotionally is too up and down. When the guy is on lock, the guy can score with the best of them, right? Mm-hmm. Like we've seen that. And I think you will see a performance like that in the postseason. I have no doubt about it. And my big thing right now is that they are peaking low at the wrong time. Every team, even the Bucks, even the best teams in the league, we lost 12 of 15. We lost, a bunch of games that we shouldn't have lost. But the good teams, the Celtics as an example, right? The good teams, like the Celtics, do that losing in December, in January. And now they're hot in, March and April and heading into the postseason. I look at the standings. Dude, the Knicks are 11.5 out. They are better than 11.5 out behind the Bucks. I can tell you that right now. They're probably like 6 or 7 games back. That's how good I think they are. You are 6 or 7 games worse than the Bucks, who are regarded as one of the best teams in the league. And what my problem is if you were 6 or 7 back, you would be pushing Cleveland for home court advantage. And that's where I'm like, all right, hey, Jalen's been out. Julius has had a tough go. You're dumping at the wrong time. And I think what will be interesting to see, kind of what you were saying, if they can get into the playoffs, Jalen comes back, they get hot, can they beat, whoever that matchup winds up being, whether it's the Nets or whatever it is, right? Can they win a series and get to the next round? Because if you do that, I think you've been successful based on the Jalen Brunson trade and the cost of, the fine that you got and the draft compensation and the penalty you took for going and getting Brunson. If you can win a playoff series, I think then it's worth your time. But I will still maintain they are one player away from being a true finals threat.
Yeah, and I'll still maintain that the problem is R.J. Barrett. The guy is up and down, and I watch a pretty good amount of Knicks basketball, and I'm telling you, the guy is up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they wanted to trade him, didn't want to extend him. R.J. Barrett, and everybody's going to be like, he's averaging 20 points a game. That's great. Look at his game log. 26-10. 21, 13 points. Like, you're just up and down.
Yeah, I mean, against the Rockets, what was this, 2 nights ago, last night?
2 nights
ago. The guy is, 19 points plus 17, 6 of 9 from the line, 1 of 3 from 3, 6 of 12 from the field. The problem is that Emmanuel Quickley's 14 of 18 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3, 7 of 9 from the line. And he's got 40 points.
But it's the Clipper game a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where you're getting torched by the Clippers. You have to be able to impact that game. And the problem is, obviously, the problem in that game is that you didn't really have anybody but Quickly step up. Now, Julius had 19 and 8 in that game, but R.J. Barrett, that's a game where R.J. Barrett needs to step up.
Yes.
And he needs to score, and he needs to, facilitate.
Hey, come on.
And they're frustrating to me. But I also look at the Chicago Bulls. Look at the Bulls right now. They're at Lakers and Bulls tonight.
Yeah.
In Pat Bev versus LeBron Part 2. And you're getting a team in Chicago that's just incredibly disappointing. Again. And it's because you have all these odd fits. The loss to the Clippers the other night, frankly, was humiliating.
Yeah.
I mean, the Clippers are they're without Paul George, and the Clippers are just a better team than you are.
Yeah.
Without Paul George.
Hey, come on.
And your leading scorers, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and Zach LaVine, who are all right around 20, 21, 22, 23 points. And so those are your 3 best players, and you lost. It makes no sense to me.
No defense.
Because you're trying to, they're trying to play zones. They're trying to lay boxes on the, what are we?
You're trying to overcome,
dude,
Vucevic on the defensive end. You're trying to overcome the fact that you don't have a quality big that can anchor your defense. And that's the problem. And didn't they just give him an extension too, I think, if memory serves? I could be wrong. Vucevic.
No.
Didn't they give him?
I don't believe so.
Well,
I don't believe so.
I'll check into that. But
by the way, the other thing on that team is I would assume he's not playing. He's not starting. He's playing less than 20 minutes a game. I mean, this team is poorly coached and poorly run.
Yeah.
Which is not what the Utah Jazz are.
Yeah.
Right? The Knicks, I think, are poorly coached, which is not what the Utah Jazz are. I look at this Suns game tonight.
Dude.
Your boy better step up.
Yep.
Kevin Durant needs to have a game.
Yep. He will.
He needs to have.
I'm a big believer with this Kevin Durant situation that, these guys, he could have come back, a week ago, right? He could have come back, 10 days ago. But I'm a big believer that NBA teams and guys, when you're talking about guys like Kevin Durant, that cut of player, they're going to look at the schedule and they're going to say, okay, where are we at in the rankings? When do I need to come back? And when do we need to start really turning this thing up? And to me, he's identified tonight. And yeah, you're right. He does need to come back. They do need to win out the rest of the season. And they need to go into the playoffs super hot, super on the same page, super ready to go. Because it's not going to be good enough to get stuck on some mid-table team like, whatever this year's Dallas is going to be for the Suns,
But
you know?
I also think some of this is how long is KD going to be there? How long is Book going to be there?
Yeah.
CP3's not going to be.
You know.
It's what I keep saying about Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's a great point.
How long is SGA going to be there?
Yeah.
How long is he going to be happy on a team where he's it and they're not making the playoffs?
Can you do something for me?
Because even when he's healthy, they're a bottom table team.
Yeah.
So how long are you going to have Book sitting on a team if KD can't stay healthy, or how long? How long are you going to be able to get Josh Giddey to stay there? How long are you going to be able to get anybody, even a Lou Dort?
Well, I think what's interesting with the Suns is obviously you have new ownership. Matt Ishbia is obviously,
Yep.
very motivated, very incentivized right now. So he's going to spend money. You know that he is more than happy to throw money at the Suns and try to get a championship done. And I think, in Oklahoma City, I don't really see that being the case. I don't see that being the case.
Well, ownership
in New
there has been a
York,
problem
right?
almost since Westbrook and Paul George melted down in OKC. It's been a problem. So
Yeah. I mean, this Blazers situation with Dame, I mean, is anyone going to be surprised if Dame leaves this summer? I mean,
How
would
could
be
he not?
I would be happy for Buddy. I mean, Buddy has been there for a decade or more at this point, and just watching his career melt away into the ocean. Like, at some point, you have to get selfish. So if you think about this and what's on the line in this postseason, the Western Conference specifically has been super tight this year. And there's going to be teams like Dallas who don't make the postseason, that should have made the postseason, that are inevitably going to roll their rosters over.
Correct.
The difference is that the Durants, the Dames, I would even say the Books, if they were to get bounced early in the postseason, could potentially be available. So that's why I say there's a lot at stake here.
Matt Hartley says OKC has absolutely zero pressure to make the playoffs. Well, that may be true in a grander scale. But the thing that you have to remember is this is a players' league now. And SGA's talked about this.
Yeah.
He wants to play in games of consequence. And in Oklahoma City, that's not going to happen.
Dudes aren't here just to. It's like what Bron said a couple weeks ago or whatever it was. It's not in his DNA to play mediocre, meaningless basketball. He's not here for that. And I think that there is a large grouping of young players who are stars, the SGAs of the world. You look at Book. I mean, you pick your guy, who are saying, hey, I can control my destiny. I can write my ticket, but I have to do that by saying, hey, I'm not here for mediocre basketball. I want to play in big games. I want the ball. I want to take that shot. And, it's a make or miss league, as they say. So at some point, if the organization keeps missing and continues not to put you in a good position, Portland Trailblazers, dude's going to leave.
And I think when you are already hearing rumblings that SGA's upset about losing and not playing big games. I mean, he's talked about that. Last summer, he talked about wanting to play in really important games.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that. In the next 5 years, I don't see them competing for a championship. And, you look at the way this league is trending. The West is only getting better because the West is where the money is now. You look at Ballmer, you look at Ishbia, you look at the Lakers, you look at Golden State. Those are all billionaires.
Yeah.
Billionaire, not millionaires, billionaires. And you look now, by the way, the Blazers are going to get sold.
Yeah.
Right? The Western Conference is only getting better.
Yeah.
And you look at Denver, everybody's got money. So who made all the moves at the deadline? The West made all the moves at the deadline.
Oh, even the Jazz.
Yeah. And so, but the Jazz are pretty much the quintessential team I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's no way to look at the Jazz and say that with Danny Ainge and a billionaire owner who's now got no debt and he is ready to rock and roll forward, they're going to compete for a championship. I would say not next season. Next season, they'll be a playoff team. In 2 seasons, they'll be pushing for the top of the West.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, in 3 seasons, they'll be competing for an NBA championship because they have torn it down and they have really made difficult choices. And now they have all their draft picks. They have all the salary cap space. Everybody wants to freak out about Russell Westbrook. He got you $47 million in cap space. They're going to have the most cap space in the entire NBA. Mm-hmm. Can trade for anybody they want.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Oklahoma City, Their cap space almost doesn't matter because look what they're married to. They're married to SGA, who's already talking about being frustrated by losing. You've got a guy in Josh Giddey who's very young. You've got a guy in Chet who can't stay healthy yet. You got a guy in Lou Dort who, great defender, way inconsistent. And you look at Williams, and again, you have all these interesting pieces. Does any of that add up to a championship in the next 5 years? It does not.
Yeah.
And you just don't have a group that's running that team. And we can go back and forth about this. Like, look at Salty Drunk. I know the Jazz is your market. We're a national show pretty much, dude. Like, the Jazz are not our market. But OKC aren't at a very minimum on the same path as the Jazz. Fuck no, they're not.
We're not saying they're on the same path.
They're
like,
not.
What show are you listening to?
They're not even in the same hemisphere.
Yeah.
They're not like this is. Do you have any idea how much cap space Oklahoma City has? Do you have any idea what their cap space is? And I'm going to give you a minute while I look it up. Tell me right now, James Knight, how much salary cap do they have? Well, the answer is they're negative 30 million practical cap space, right? Their total cap's 148 million. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's at $30.9 million, right? And I'd also remind you that he's locked up for the next 4 seasons, and he's only making mid-30s. His max is 26, 27 at 40. That's what we call a tradable contract. Dort is making $15 million, and then you got a bunch of dudes that are not of consequence.
Yeah.
You don't have a ton of cap space, right? You don't have, like, Dario Saric is going to fall off the books, but look at Josh Giddey, right? Josh Giddey is on a team option for next season, and then you're going to have to pay him. You're going to have to pay him because he'll be a restricted free agent in 2025. So he's got a contract coming up. Do they have a history of paying guys? They don't. Not since PG and Westbrook. So I'm just asking you, when you talk about, hey, how many guys are like, how many guys on that team are going to be there if OKC ever wins a championship? Right? Do you really think Kenrich Williams is going to be there when they win a championship? He's a $2 million player that's going to be a free agent. Right? So do you really think that he's a guy who is, obviously he signed this extension now, right? Do you really think he's a guy that's going to be there when they win a championship? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. They're not in the same hemisphere, in my opinion. Yes, sir. By the way, what?
Joel and James are back tonight for Philly.
Wow. You guys, do you understand the amazing amount of recovery that took?
Isn't incredible?
Couldn't play in Denver.
Cock.
Right. Come on. This hour of the show presented by our good friends at Papa Murphy's Pizza. Make sure you use the promo code Monty25 to get 25% off your purchase of $25 or more at Papa Murphy's Pizza. And don't you dare forget, all you OKC fans, get that meat.
Papa Murphy's, we do more than just pizza. We do meatballs and marinara.
Actually, I do the meatballs and marinara.
And how do you do it, Dad?
How do I do it? How do I do it?
Order now at papamurphys.com.
Get the meatball marinara, make sandwiches out of it. Go ahead, make some, put it on your pizza.
Yep.
Man, the meatball marinara, they give you 9 meatballs. They make great hoagies.
If you guys ever want to kick it, we'll flow.
Dude, you have no idea. Papa Murphy's Pizza, make sure you use the promo code Monty25. Let's see. Salty Drunk says, so why are the Jazz any better off to retain or attract studs? Because they're not trying to retain studs. They traded them. All of them. Your stud is Lauri Markkanen. And then Walker Kessler, who's a rookie.
Yeah.
So you control that guy. And then you have a ton of cap space.
I mean,
Are we really having this conversation?
Are we speaking Russian today, or what is the... Like,
James, are you really trying to say that Oklahoma City is better off than the Jazz? Is that really what you're trying to say?
OKC
When the Jazz
may have some players who are coming. But in the big picture, the Jazz are in a better place.
The Jazz, you guys, the Jazz next season, do you understand that Jordan Clarkson, Talon Horton-Tucker, Rudy Gay, and Damian Jones are all on player options? And almost for certain, Talon Horton-Tucker is going to opt out because he's only making 11. Jordan Clarkson's already said he's going to opt out. Like, they're going to have almost $70 million in cap space.
Yeah.
Almost $70 million. If everybody opted in, they'd still have $50 million in cap space. If everybody opted in, $50 million.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, you're only paying Walker Kessler, who is in the running for Rookie of the Year. He won't win it. Paolo Banchero is going to win it. So let's call him the because he's probably number 2 in Rookie of the Year balloting.
Yeah.
Right? And he's making $2.8 million next year.
It's crazy, dude.
Are you serious? You think they're in the same spot? Come on now. That's crazy money. That's crazy. Do you understand Lauri Markkanen is not even your highest paid player? And Lauri Markkanen's under contract next year for $17.2 million. And then in 24-25, he's partially guaranteed $18 million. Stop it.
Yeah.
The Jazz are in you're right. They're in a superior position.
And
Come on
nobody
now.
seems to want to talk about that.
Come on now. I just don't. That's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. And the biggest issue, again, with Oklahoma City is they've shown no track record of making pragmatic, good decisions with their talent. They just haven't. And you have your best player saying, I'm frustrated that we lose all the time.
Yeah.
And I want to play in big leverage situations.
Mm-hmm.
And you just want to blow that off and say, oh, look at all our talent. You can't just look at the talent. You got to look at where the talent is and what they're capable of, man.
Because they're going to have to find a way to make proper trades. Like, you're going to have to find a way to make trades that work now because you're negative cap space.
Salty Drunk says, I don't give a toss how much cap space the Jazz have. You have to get studs to commit. That's why you trade for guys.
Yeah.
That's why you trade. I'm not saying that they're going to be spending boatloads of cash in free agency, but they will get a free agent to take their money.
Yeah.
They will. There is no doubt about that.
And if you think that in the draft they can't get someone who can turn into their SGA, who could turn into their Josh Giddey, you're mistaken, because the top of the draft is loaded. And if they want to trade up and go that route, they most absolutely can. And if they don't, they still have 3 picks in the first round. So that's why I say, like, I just think that I get it. You like your Australian players. You're a big fan of OKC. I totally understand. I'm not even being snarky. I'm being genuine, dude. I get why you like OKC. I understand it. But you cannot sit here and reference Stephen A. Smith and J.J. Redick and all these national pundits.
It was the argument we had over Joe Ingles when you said the Jazz were never going to trade Joe Ingles. They were never not going to trade. And then it happens and you're like still pissed off about it. You don't get bias one way or the other. Not here. And again, you're upset that we're not going to like sit here and shine. And you keep saying we're too Jazz centric. Knock yourself out, dude. Go find your NBA show. It's YouTube. The wilderness is out there, my guy.
Yeah.
Like I understand. You want us to kiss your ass and tell you how great OKC is. Wrong show.
We're not doing it.
Wrong show. That's not what we do on
my
this show.
opinion, because I want to make sure there's no spin, because I know you're going to take this to the members group. I want to make sure there's no spin. I want to make sure we're very clear on what I think and what my opinion is. Yes, OKC has talent. Yes, they are an up-and-coming power in the West. They are, right? You've got talent right now. The problem, though, is that's the surface-level evaluation, which is why ESPN is saying it, right? Which is why national pundits, what do? They make safe, generalized takes when they're on ESPN because it's ESPN. That comes with rules and limitations. Go listen to JJ Redick's podcast, and you're going to get a little bit different of an answer. My opinion is that, yes, you have talent in OKC. The problem is you don't have a front office and you don't have cap space that's going to allow you to make the necessary moves to ascend to a Western Conference power. SGA's frustrated. Yeah. SGA will leave at some point. I would guess it's going to take a few years because of his situation. But if you don't sell that team or make a significant change in the front office, you're not going to go anywhere. They've shown us that.
Well, I look at who's in the news today? The Washington Wizards with Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah.
They're going to offer Kristaps Porzingis a massive extension. Good luck.
Yeah.
Washington makes bad decisions every single year.
When's Bradley Beal getting out?
You look at my Chicago Bulls. They make bad decisions every single year.
The difference is
they do nothing at the deadline.
But the difference is the Jazz are past that now.
Yes.
We moved on from Donnie and Gobert. Great. Go win championships, Donnie.
You moved
we don't
on
care.
from Dennis Lindsey and the bad decisions.
Yeah.
The Rudy Gobert contract.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not.
And by the way, it needs to be said, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole here. If you want to go find other NBA content, do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
We have our opinions. It's our show, but we're not a Jazz show, man. We may have started out like that when we had 100 subs. We're not a Jazz show anymore. This show is pushing, 500,000 views nationally? Like, this is a big show now, and it's not just the Jazz. That's why we're talking Suns, and we're talking Dallas, and we're like all kinds of stuff, dude. We haven't even gotten to what happened with Roger Goodell and Jim. Like, we haven't gotten.
Yeah, I want to go to
this stuff. Dude.
I want to go to that Jim Trotter thing. I think it is really important here on the Monty Show, presented by The Advocates, theadvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business. By the way, did you get hurt at work? Oh boy. They also handle workman's comp, and that's not something you want to do on your own. You don't want your brother's friend Kevin, who's in law school, handling your workman's comp case, man. And I hear it all the time. I can't afford a workman's comp attorney. You can afford The Advocates because you don't pay The Advocates until they win your case. So no retainers, no consultation fees. You can actually chat with an attorney live online 24/7, no cost at theadvocates.com. They're just the best injury attorneys in the business at theadvocates.com. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show.